This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre on another far-packed political news day. I'm Nidhi Razdan. In the next hour, the virtual breakdown in the Lokpal panel. Yes, we're talking about it again. Today, Arvind Kejriwal called it the Jokepal panel. So is this a pointless exercise? Also, the Congress hit back that Nitin Gadkari says he belongs in the dustbin. Has the political discourse in India touched a new low? Those are our big debates tonight. Joining us on the program tonight is Renuka Chaudhary, Senior Congress leader who joins us from Hyderabad. Here in Delhi with us, we have the national spokesperson of the BJP, Nirmala Sitharaman again. We have social activist Swami Agnivesh, whom I'd like to say hello to again. Once again from Delhi, he was with us last night as well. Sankarshan Thakur from The Telegraph is with us here in Delhi, and also joining us from London tonight is columnist Suhail Seth, who of course has very strong views on, shall I say, everything. Alright, let's take a look at our top political story tonight. The sniping between the centre and civil society over the Lokpal Bill appears to have hit breaking point. Today, Hazare's team called it a Jokepal Bill, but stopped short of actually walking out of the panel altogether.
Frittered away a huge opportunity for taking a credit for passing a strong Lokpal Bill. सरकार पहले से ये बिल बना के बैठी हुई है और वो बिल वो लेके आएगी. They will bulldoze that bill. और ये वाला जो हमारी डिस्कशन थी इसका कोई मतलब नहीं था. और जो सरकार बिल लेके आ रही है, that is not a Lokpal bill, that is basically a Jokepal bill.
You question our motives, you question our honesty, you threaten to go on a fast unto death. You say decisions are taken when it is just the contrary, right? And you say we are not drafting the bill because half of us will be in jail. Is this the kind of discourse?
Well, that brings us to our first subject tonight. From Lokpal to Jokepal, is the government-civil society divide now complete? And what really is the point of this exercise with the Lokpal panel? Do tweet me at Nidhi_Razdan. Well, let's get that question straight away to Swami Agnivesh, who has been supporting this cause of Anna Hazare very closely. Mr. Agnivesh, you know, another day of really ugly words exchanged between both sides, and now, you know, Arvind Kejriwal calling it the Jokepal Bill. Why is civil society then continuing to be part of this panel? What's the point now?
Well, Nidhi, I would very much urge my esteemed friends on the panel to be more restrained and not to foreclose the discussion, the debate in the Joint Drafting Committee, because that way we will be seen to be sort of not really working and for the mandate which has been given to us by the people. People have reposed their faith and they want us to participate and continue at least up to 30th of June. Let us hear them out. If they are not cooperating, let them be seen, the government side to be seen, that they are being adamant and they are being a little unhelpful.
Do you think
but
that at
this point...
from
our side, let us not...
But do you think that it's what's happening right now is the other way around, that it's members of civil society who look like they're being stubborn and being difficult?
Well, I would urge them, my friends, that they should not, foreclose the discussion in the discourse. In the sense that there is a lot of room. A drafting committee of this nature is precisely meant for continuing the debate, engaging the other side in every possible way. Maybe during the interregnum, we should meet them personally, some of the ministers, etc. And we need to lobby also through various other sources.
Sure,
so
but can I ask
democratic
you,
functioning...
Since you are very candid, does that discourse necessarily have to take place through press conferences that are being held every day through the media? We have to listen to them every single day on both sides, you know, and does it have to be done like this?
I agree with you. I very much agree with you, Nidhi, that this type of sort of a match between the wordy duel, this doesn't help very much, but let us urge both sides in the interest, larger interest of the people of this country. They want end to corruption. They want to see a deterrent and a credible legislation. And to that
Sure.
end, we should give the government a long rope, as long as they want, because we should not be seen that we are walking out or we are not joining the debate.
All right.
Even if
So
they are being
you're being very
stubborn,
measured.
yeah.
You're being very measured. But Nirmala Sitharaman, the BJP that has supported Anna Hazare's team very vocally and openly, I mean, even Swami Agnivesh is saying that maybe this isn't the way to do things. Would you agree with that, or is this just generating into a daily spat now and now becoming pointless?
No, see, the discussions are happening after that Jantar Mantar demonstration, in which the public came out openly in support. So if they are reporting back to the people through the media every day, I can understand the anxiety, because they obviously will have to keep the people who have come out in support of them, they want to keep them informed. So I don't see a harm in that. But what I find worrying is that civil society group which ended up having invested in a certain level of trust and confidence in the government, saying we'll work with you to get a draft bill, is also not able to have that faith enduring in them to work with the government. Why am I saying this? In the parliament, opposition parties did their best to get the government to work with them in order to get somewhere in eradicating corruption.
Well, you walked out of parliament and didn't let parliament
you can
function
always
for an entire term.
Let me just finish it. You would look at it as we walked out, but certainly because the Congress party was adamant and did not want the JPC till the last, but later when they realized they had to
Are
give
you
in.
saying the way that civil society is, that Arvind Kejriwal, that whatever he's saying every day is a reaction to what the Congress is saying?
Swami Agnivesh's line that they have to give a long rope to the government is in the very large-hearted, magnanimous kind of a line, which is for the civil society very important, because you're working with governments which can tire you out. But the government also, given the environment today in the country, should invest more in building trust. It's not negotiating, engaging with the opposition parties, nor is it able to build confidence in the people who have come saying, we have issues to sort out with you.
Is it right to call it a Jokepal Bill? Is it right to call it, ministers as liars and cheats?
No,
no. I did ask Mr. Kejriwal to come on the show today and he refused.
I understand, but I also can understand when pressure builds on each of the groups, they are going to talk like this. But that's no justification. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is I think the drafting committee is a big investment that the country has made in terms of building trust and expecting the government to function.
Okay.
I think both the sides will have to have a lot more patience, because we need to get somewhere.
Well, Renuka Chaudhary, is this panel doomed? I mean, we're seeing these spats happen every day and they're getting worse with every passing press conference.
Nidhi, I'll tell you, it's a very regrettable state of affairs. I don't know if Mr. Gadkari thought it right to speak the way he did, and whether that is the benchmark of the BJP, that's how they conduct themselves. And then you have the civil society, which has also indulged in name calling, and so it is very unfortunate. At the end of the day, what my concern is that the Lokpal Bill has to be completed and brought to Parliament, and that should remain our focus, instead of the BJP slapping its thigh in glee and trying to get one up and political leverage because of their own dismal state of affairs, and the civil society, which hasn't really conducted itself in a civil manner, if you know what I mean. And the result of this is that everyone stands exposed.
Do you believe, though, that the substance of this, I mean, this exercise of drafting this bill, I mean, is it, as I think it was Arvind Kejriwal or someone at that press conference said, I mean, we're just talking because we're talking for the optics of it. And is that what it's become reduced to?
How sad. I wish it's not. No, I don't think it should be that way, because that's very sad. At the end of the day, democracy must triumph. And as well as the legislature has to rise above all this pettiness that we're seeing. And civil society must understand, you can't threaten, blackmail, you coerce. It has to go through a democratic process. You can't say deadlines, the now or never, this or nothing else. It can't happen that way.
And Swami
And this
Agnivesh,
is a
that
learning
happened
process
again.
For them, these are rather
okay.
naive.
What
they've
Renuka Chaudhary is saying, and let me get Sohail Satan from London, who he joins us all the way from there. Sohail, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago on this program in its other avatar. And as you watch this story unfolding there, do you believe that this panel is going to get anywhere at all? And this politics of I'm going to go on another fast or else, where does this lead us to?
You know, there are 3 or 4 issues here. Number one, the level of discourse has cheapened abysmally. We don't, you know, you don't have to cast aspersions on people's credibility, you know, sab neta chor hain, you know, abuse people in public. That's not the level of discourse. That's not what's expected from Anna Hazare or from anyone who believes that they represent civil society. It is uncivil behavior wherever it is executed and whoever it is exuded by. My second point is, I as a citizen really question who decides who my representatives in this so-called civil society are going to be. So for a moment, let's imagine that these 5 gentlemen are going to be our representatives. There has to be a level of discourse which takes into account the behavioral patterns of every citizen. It can't be abusive, it can't be finger pointing, because we won't get anywhere. The third thing, we are already a very cynical nation. People are going to be even more cynical and going to laugh at this whole process if the process plays out in press conferences rather than in closed doors. You know, we are a nation used to washing not just ours but everyone else's linen in public. That's not the way things should be. Finally, government's job is to legislate. The BJP or whichever opposition party's job is to participate in that process. The BJP can't outsource its role as the opposition to whoever it chooses to. For once, and Nidhi, let me state this unequivocally, I'm not casting aspersions on anyone on this panel. I'm not for a moment suggesting that anyone is below reproach. But the point I'm making is that when you play a drama like this, this is exactly what it comes out as, a drama. That's not what we want. This is not the way legislation is going to happen. And you know what you're going to do is you're going to knock citizen confidence, you're going to knock citizen belief, and everyone's going to say, oh, we told you so. If Anna Hazare ji believes that he started a movement, which I think he did, if the government was willing to talk to him, which it has been, I think we should respect both parties. This whole anti-establishment wave that every Indian, you know, derives enormous joy from has to stop. Because if we continue like this, then we are chipping away at the very ethos of democracy.
But Swami
then we might
Agnivesh,
as well have many civil society groups.
Swami
you know, I
Agnivesh,
want a civil society group for Maharani Bagh or for, you know, Archana Cinema Complex.
All right, well, that's us. That's us. I'm going to go and light a candle downstairs in the parking lot. But on a serious note, you know,
civil society groups come about.
well, I took a dig at them. I'm not going to hear the end of it. But Swami Agnivesh, you know, you were candid and you said that you don't believe this should be played out through press conferences on television. Let me just ask you, you know, we're going to debate in just a few minutes about the kind of language that our political parties are resorting to, the way Nitin Gadkari spoke, Digvijay Singh spoke. But, you know, Sohail and the others have a point. Look at the way members of civil society have been speaking, and Arvind Kejriwal in particular. You know, the kind of language that's been used. It's not helping, and therefore everyone's just wondering what really is the point of this.
Well, when some of these political leaders ask us, if you are civil, then what are we? Are we uncivil? To that I would like to reply that no, you are political and we are supposed to be civil. And in that sense, I feel that we have an obligation to be mild and to be moderate and to be engaging and not seen to be in confrontation. So it's more through engagement and through cooperation, partnership, that we can get some result. The moment we are seen to be in confrontation, then the purpose, the main purpose is lost. So I very humbly submit that we should be at every cost, even if they are being little, say, provocative, we should be very mild and we should be as civil as possible. Then only we can establish our credentials as members of civil society. All
right, very frank words from you there today. I'll come back to you, sir. I wanted to get Sankarshan in here, who apart from laughing at my candle comment can add can add a little more to that. I mean, you know the political pulse of Delhi, Sankarshan. What's the government really thinking about this panel? I mean, do they really believe a serious legislation is going to come out of this?
Well, I think they do believe, I think they are trying to get something serious out of it. But I think the sense in the government also is that the morality police is holding a gun to its head. And I think that's not a healthy sense for any government to have. And I would have to say that I partially agree with that sense, because the way the entire discourse of the so-called civil society representatives, and I don't know when the mandating happened and when they were given the power and at what juncture the people of India came and mandated them to do. Selected them. I remain unsure of when that happened. But the manner in which they have conducted themselves and the language that sort of came into evidence a few hours ago is not constructive. And I think Swami Agnivesh comes as a refreshing bolt of reason in all of this. That, if you want to constructively engage in... Look at Mr. Kejriwal calling it a Jokepal Bill. He doesn't even... How can you presuppose what the government is doing? The government is in the process of consulting people itself, the cabinet, in an effort to formulate a bill. You cannot jump ahead and call it a Jokepal Bill. You are not serious. Yeah. I think on the I think the joint panel is dead. On the 21st, you are going to have the funeral rites, and that's what it is to me.
And would you agree with that? That the conduct, I mean, again, you've supported the cause, you've supported what they stand for, but do you agree that the conduct is something that is questionable?
The conduct becomes questionable only because I think there's so much stress on both the parties. And of course, that doesn't justify it. I agree, that doesn't justify it. But there is such stress on them, which we have to take notice of.
No.
Because...
Why do you say no, Suhail? Why?
I would have really liked to finish my bit.
Okay, I'll let her finish her point and come back to you. Okay, yeah.
The stress comes not because they are committed or not committed to the bill, but it comes because of extraneous reasons. And that's where I hold the government more responsible for the situation rather than the civil society organizations. They've been put to so much of pressure because they're questioning, they are also trying to negotiate the maximum that they can get to get the Lokpal Bill to become wider in its representation and so on. So given that situation, civil society members would definitely be pushed up against the wall to speak like that. That doesn't justify it. Similarly, the government is now very much under stress because the system has now so become keen to see a Lokpal Bill come, and 4 ministers are there. The government has definitely invested a lot in this. They want to show that they have the will to fight corruption, and they are also probably at the end of their tethers.
Want to show that they have the will to fight. A quick response from Suhail and Renuka Chaudhary before we go to the audience. Suhail, what were you saying?
No, I think the argument itself by Nirmala is slightly illogical. When people expect these 5 people as their representatives, they expect a certain level of decorum and they expect a certain level of closure. You don't approach a negotiating table with a gun. That's what you do in streets. That's what you do on battlegrounds. You don't approach a solution by telling people that, okay, you're the problem. What has happened of late, Nidhi, is that people have taken strident positions. And when you take strident positions in the art of negotiation, you automatically kill the entire negotiation process. And that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing it crumble. And what's worse is that you've incited, you've inspired an entire nation, so-called, and then you fall flat. So, for Nirmala to say that, but the government should be more mature, what do you expect the government to do? On every occasion, there is a gun being held to the government's head. If the government does, it's damned. If it doesn't, it's doomed. So the reality is as follows. If the government doesn't do something, it's seen as anti-people. If the government does do something, then it faces a barrage of abuse, which is so unnecessary. I mean, you have
exactly my
people
point
like Anna Hazare,
Suhail.
like Shanti Bhushan.
That's my point too,
you have
Suhail.
Shanti Bhushan.
No, I think what he's trying to say is
I would suggest you don't.
I think what he's trying to say is that you have another ultimatum by Anna Hazare.
See, Nirmala, I want to tell Nirmala one thing. India is not about the BJP versus the Congress. There is a larger India. Try and understand that India. I'm apolitical. I don't care about either party. So when we are making a point, understand the spirit in which we are making the point.
Maybe I need to
We're not making the point anti-BJP or anti-Congress. The point I'm making is all of us want a Lokpal Bill. But if someone who represents us calls it a Jokepal, he himself is being facetious about the trust we've invested in that process.
Quick response
and I don't want someone to be facetious about that.
Let her respond. I have to go to the other.
I'm sorry to say you probably did not hear all that I've said. The stresses on both the sides is what I mentioned. That's not a political line. And I also mentioned that there are stress on both the sides. Whilst you might hold the gun responsible, I'll also be tempted, which I was not earlier, now that you are saying it, I will be tempted to add this line, that the government also has taken such steps which are not becoming at this stage as regards the civil society groups, the kind of persecution which is going on some of them. So please, will you just hold on? Will you just hold on? I might use a word like that, but there are enough evidence to believe that people are being even investigated for the trust that they have, the foundations that they run. So these are...
You're talking about Ramdev.
Also Shanti Bhushan, the CD, a whole lot of things. So, given that, I took a line which I wish you had heard properly, that on both the sides, if you call gun at one side, there is something else the other side. Both are compelled to perform now because the public expectation is very high. And this is not a party line. I wish you had heard me completely.
Renuka.
No, I agree with what Suhail said. You know, there has to be a rational and a balance. I'm very disappointed in Nirmala ji to talk like that today, because what is this pious posturing that the BJP is doing? I mean, what, you don't want any scrutiny on anything. Everyone who is supposedly civil society are these pious souls who have descended from heaven. And the government which has faced electoral politics and come in voted by the people, for the people, the fundamental principles of democracy are not relevant. And we say that, oh, that is you coercing, you are trying to check on the antecedents. Of course you should check. Why are they so afraid? What prevents them from coming out and saying that this is what we are about?
Let me just take a couple of questions.
And we are accountable to the nation. We are accountable. If we are taking people onto the panel, we don't want to find surprises there tomorrow.
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
So what is this pious thing that, oh, we are under great stress, both of us are under great stress? Every citizen in this country.
As a general citizen of the country, I just want to say about what a general citizen in this country is seeing between Congress and BJP. This is rather they should concentrate on Lokpal Bill. They are just getting into a rhetoric, and I would rather agree with what Mr. Sohail said. BJP just washes out the whole parliament in whole case, and then now when the civil society and government are trying to come up with a draft of the bill, BJP is not giving any amendments or helping out and giving any cause for the bill.
So you think politics is being played? Let me just get one more question in. Yes.
I would like to add that the Lokpal Bill is something which is not just the need of the hour. It was something which was due for a very long time, and it is something which shakes the very fundamentals of our country. So
are you disappointed to see this?
So what I would say is that something like this should have come up long time back, either by UPA or NDA, and it should have been a self-nurtured bill within the government,
rather than being forced
by an external agency.
I think that's a good note to end on.
I need to put some facts on the table here.
I have to take
very briefly.
20 seconds. Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that the perception you have of the BJP's role in this discussion with the Lokpal is not right. If it is the government engaging with the civil society, the government should have invited political parties to participate in the process. And without... No, wait a minute. Let me just put the fact. The government has not invited.
The government did not invite them, and that is
a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And when they've not even invited us, and when there is a time for us to speak about the draft, when it reaches the parliament, we'll certainly do it.
If
but for you to think that we have not contributed,
I just want to add that caveat that if parliament functions,
our hands out. We'll wait for our turn.
All right.
We'll wait for our turn.
All right. We're going to take a break. Still ahead, well, we were talking about the spat between civil society and government, but there's also a rather ugly discourse in Indian politics today. The Congress has hit back at Nitin Gadkari. We'll have more on that after the break. Welcome back. The Congress today sharply attacked BJP President Nitin Gadkari for his comments on Sonia Gandhi. Yesterday, Mr. Gadkari had called her fascist and said that her fighting corruption was like Pakistan fighting terrorism. Now the Congress says that every BJP chief minister is a despot and that Nitin Gadkari should be confined to the dustbin of politics.
ये नटैयों की पार्टी भारतीय जनता पार्टी कब से हो गई है?
ये जरूर श्रीमती सोनिया गांधी से पूछना चाहूंगी, कांग्रेस की अध्यक्षा से, कि क्या कांग्रेस का ये स्तर हो गया है? क्या ये सब उनकी सहमति से हो रहा है?
सोनिया जी बोलती है कि हम भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ हैं। मैंने एक मजाक में कहा कि ये बात ऐसी है कि पाकिस्तान कहता है कि हम आतंकवाद से लड़ेंगे। फैसिस्ट और हिटलरशाही प्रवृत्ति की प्रतीक सोनिया गांधी बनी हुई है और जिनके इशारों पर निरपराध लोगों को, निहत्थे लोगों को रात को जिस प्रकार से पीटा गया, एक कांग्रेस पार्टी के नेता इसका जवाब।
Every chief minister of the BJP is a fascist and a despot in his own state, and the moment the RSS withdraws its support, he will be consigned to the dustbin of politics.
Well, it's not therefore that spat with Gadkari that we're talking about. It's everything really. Digvijay Singh's comments about Sushma Swaraj's dancing and much, much more. Is the political discourse in India plunging to new lows? Has it actually touched an all-time low? That's the next question we're asking tonight. First, let me ask Nirmala Sitharaman that, Mr. Gadkari has had this habit of, well, putting his foot in his mouth and making statements which are rather controversial. Should he have used the word fascist? I mean, was that really necessary?
Well, if there are tendencies in the Congress which very clearly remind us of the emergency days, which go against the very grain of the democracy that we are nurturing, what is wrong in calling the Congress party's ways as being fascist? That is not anti-parliamentary, it is not against the mood of the country. Just look at the examples that you want to take. The way in which
it was made about specific people, the Sonia Gandhi and the Prime Minister.
Well, you're talking
not about the
ways
of the party.
Well, that is how a party's president is referred to when the party itself is going wrong. So it is not as if you can exclude one or two members of the party and be so polite as to say, I'm not talking about X, but the system is wrong. It is a symbolic way of saying that the party which is headed by so-and-so is becoming fascist. That is not derogatory, but in this context, I would definitely want to
someone fascist is not derogatory. Since when?
Well, when their practice, excuse me, when their practices are fascist.
I find that a bit extreme, calling someone fascist.
You may have a view on it, but the fact is, those who are going through the whole way, yeah, you can certainly. I certainly will not be like the Congress party to be intolerant of hearing your comments.
So let's listen to his comments then before we come to Renuka.
Can I just finish,
sure.
Nidhi? There is definitely a sense that today the political culture is intolerant. There is definitely a sense of not wanting to hear the unpleasant questions from people, questions on corruption, questions on practices.
Sure.
Does definitely get onto the nerves.
Them.
Yes, but then there are, I purposely did bring this book which Vajpayee ji had written on how this culture slowly of, the political decency has descended since the time of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And he narrates
so she's
it so
to blame
very
for
well.
That as well.
I'm not blaming anyone, but there has been, for the last 25-30 years in this country, slowly kind of a deterioration in the kind of language that we are using. There is intolerance to a high degree that when uncomfortable questions are being raised or asked, we will put you down with sharp languages. Who, after all, wrote Maut Ki Saudagar? Is that a very nice word to use?
We all, again, even Sankarshan was saying that it wasn't very nice of Mr. Gadkari to use the word fascist. But was it necessary for the Congress to then respond and say that every BJP chief minister is a despot and that, Mr. Gadkari should be confined to the dustbin of politics? That's not very nice either.
Nidhi, I just want to say one thing. I really feel bad for the BJP because they are stuck with the liability of their president. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi has been vetted by the people and she belongs to a long line of illustrious Congress party presidents who have contributed consciously and constructively to the nation. Now the BJP is mouthing tolerance and impatience, and look at the way they so casually use the word fascist. You are insulting the intelligence of a democratic India, which has repeatedly voted people to power and out of power. And that is what they must take cognizance of. It doesn't matter what you talk sitting at TV panels. But if those are your referral points and those are the yardsticks by which you think you will come back to power, then I can only sympathize, I can only pity the BJP, because the desperation, the thirst for power, and they really must introspect. They must look, never mind what the Congress is, what is the BJP about? Are their chief ministers clean? What is the government?
But is it fair to call them fascists? You also call them fascists and despots. Is that fair?
No, because that is the yardstick, Nidhi, that is the yardstick by which they are talking. In Nirmala ji is endorsing it even now. Okay. That is the language they understand. They haven't understood civility. They didn't understand civility when we were conducting this ourselves. A party president comes out and talks like that.
All right,
Mauth ki Saudagar was said by the Congress Party's president.
Sonia Gandhi also has been subjected to a lot of...
Mauth ki Saudagar was said by the Congress Party's president, ma'am. Emergency was yours, ma'am. This country's fascist traditions are all coming from your bandwagon.
I feel like a school teacher now.
There we are.
There we go. Calm down, everybody.
So, you know, Mr. Gadkari is such a bumbling hardy, isn't he? Looking for Lawrence on the track.
I was going to say that. What is with Mr. Gadkari?
I mean, if I were a congressman, frankly, I would urge him on the road to follies. You know, rather than stop him, you know, alarm him and say, express outrage and condemnation and say, oh, stop doing this. He should be allowed to continue doing this.
He has a habit of doing it.
Yeah, you know, this Munni metaphor and the dog-licking metaphor that he used for the Yadavs a while ago. You know, the kind view of all that could be that Mr. Gadkari is trying to free the political discourse of this stuffed shirt punditry of Delhi and make it more sort of streetwise accessible. But that, as I said, is a very kind view of what Mr. Gadkari's language is.
No, but Nidhi, just one thing where I feel very sorry about the dual, you know, policy that we adopt in this matter. Digvijay Singh raises such language, uses such language. That doesn't offend anybody, does it?
No, it of course does offend people.
No, hold on, please.
Let
me just finish. So, when there is such statement made, even in the parliament, by members of the Congress, it doesn't bring in sense of outrage. I'm glad that you're pegging us on a higher standard and expecting the BJP to always be 100%
I'm not. I'm
right.
asking both of
Whereas
you.
the Congress
Party,
we
played Digvijay
Singh's
bite.
Nobody's justifying any ill language, but the Congress Party's language and simply even on death commenting on people. If I can remind you about the 2611 hero who lost his life, the kind of comments which I made, do you think all this comes under political decency?
You were trying to make a point, you know, you
can't forget that the BJP gave ministerial escort for terrorists who went and came back and targeted Parliament.
Emergency.
I mean, for that loss of
I think we're going to hear about Kandahar and the emergency for the next 10 years. Yeah, so
Somnath, the attack on Somnath.
There are three or four issues here which emerge. Issue one, both these parties, in fact all politicians in India revere Mahatma Gandhi. And yet it's ironic that they don't heed his views, which was an eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. So it's not about whether Digvijay Singh responds or Gadkari says this. I think it points to a larger malaise. The malaise is that we have now used gutter sniping as the idiom for being Aam Aadmi and rooted. We believe that we will be rooted and seen as commoners if we use language which is full of vitriol, viciousness, and is vile and vulgar.
And the Aam Aadmi doesn't
agree. But that's not the discourse we need from political leadership. Wherever that leadership may reside. It may reside in the Congress, it may reside in the BJP, it may reside with Mayawati. And this is exactly what is plaguing the Lokpal Bill. We have descended the conversation to a level where people can say anything and get away. Where you will have gutter sniping, so abuse becomes the core rather than the issue. So we all forget the principles within the Lokpal Bill, the clauses within the Lokpal Bill, and it's about allegation and abuse.
Yeah, we're talking about the tutu meme.
You can't build a country on abuse, ridicule and viciousness.
All right, but Renuka Chaudhary,
the
point that Nirmala Sitharaman made on Digvijay Singh's comments on Sushma Swaraj, that's a valid point. I mean, to say Nachniyon ki party, I mean, you may not like what Sushma Swaraj did at Rajghat, but do you have to say that? It's rather unkind. Again, I feel like a school teacher.
Nidhi, I can't answer for someone else, but I have to tell you that dancing at the Rajghat did violate a sensibility. I'm not justifying whether someone has said something or not. I don't know in what context it was said, and I don't know how it would translate if you were to say it in Hindi, that someone is they're a party of dancers. I don't know how it translates into Hindi. I would say that it's yeah. How do you translate that?
I mean, that's what the translation is, which is not. I mean, it's not the most respectful way to say it.
A party of dancers.
Of nautch girls, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
I mean, you're a woman. Renuka Chaudhary, you're a woman. You're very candid.
I mean, I am saying that, Nidhi. I am saying it.
Yeah.
Nothing justifies this kind of conduct by anyone. And so this righteous posturing that, oh, we are allowed to say this or you're allowed to say that, has to go. I don't contribute to this, and much as I am quick off the trigger, I've never ever used language like this in public space and public domain. And I think we should all collectively please restore some balance and dignity to the whole debate.
What I have to do is take another break. We have enough time to go to the audience after that. There are so many people who have their hands raised. They feel very strongly about this subject. No abuses, please. That's after the break.
Renuka is in a very calm.
Welcome back to Left, Right and Centre, where we were looking at the political discourse and whether it's touched an all-time low. Let's just take a couple of quick comments from the audience before we get last words from the panel. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, okay, I can see here both either it be ma'am here or Ms. Renuka Chaudhary on the screen. Both are saying that, okay, it's not justified what we said, but seeing that this and this has happened, it's justified if we say it. Seeing that both parties are aligned at such a standpoint where both do not have their own stand, where they say that, okay, they're not justified.
They're justifying the abuse, that's what you're saying.
Both are justifying their own abuse. Okay. And saying the other person is not justified.
Okay, yes, sir, at the front, yes.
Today, the scenario is that whether it's Indian politics, it's become a joke. And, it's a laughing story. Everyone wants to be a one-man, one-up-ship over the other. You say this, well, if you can say this, I'm going to say this. People have lost all the respect, which, well, at one time maybe they had, There still was some respect, yeah. It's now one-upmanship now.
This gentleman here, quickly.
My question is to Ms. Renuka Chaudhary. See, Digvijay Singh has always made comments, and there's always been reaction from the BJP or whatever it is. But this time, the Congress's reaction is because they touched upon the Gandhi family. Now, specifically this time, the Congress doesn't consider anybody in the BJP to be untouchable, whether it's Vajpayee or Mr. Advani. But why should the Gandhi family be untouchable, and why should there be such a reaction of such a thing?
You're asking Renuka Chaudhary that question. Okay, yes. Renuka, I mean, what are you trying to say? That why shouldn't they defend the Gandhi family if they get abused?
Why such such violence in their speech towards the BJP, specifically when it's the Gandhi family that's being asked a question?
Well, I mean, that's an obvious question.
I wanted to say something in response to what the gentleman in the red turban said. He said people have lost faith in politics, and something that mystifies me, and I'm seeking answers for it. Electoral voting percentages are going up tremendously, dramatically. If people's faith in politics and politicians, it's very fashionable to lamb politicians, but for 60 years,
especially in
the Indian political class, that when it has lost, it has handed over the keys, whether it's the BJP or the Congress or the Janta or this Janta, they have said, okay, your turn, you rule. Look at the example in our neighborhood, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal. Look at the, the mess that's happening. Look at all post-colonial societies in Africa, the mess. I think the Indian politician as a whole, not party political, but the Indian politician as a class is something that we need to learn to begin to admire. And I think people who do not live in cities, people who get affected by government policy in a much more profound way, appreciate that somewhere deeply, and I think that is one reason why voting percentages
are going up. Not the candle lighting brigade that then doesn't go and vote.
No. There's one more answer for that. Well, let us assume that I try to not get into that gutter sniping. I sit quiet in every program, even if the worst provocation happens. And this might be applicable even to the Congress if any other party does it, whether the BJP does it or anybody else. So much before I'm accused of talking only from the BJP's point. What happens? The viewer consists of my follower, my party ardent supporters. They would say, such gutter sniping is being thrown at you. Are you not responsible to defend your party? Even in your defense.
Can I ask both of you, if one of the parties, said, if this is the kind of language you're using, but I'm going to rise above that and not say the same thing.
Very well. I just want to tell you that. I would definitely want to rise.
Certainly not. All right. Wait, I'm going to lose the line with Suhail. I'll come back to you.
Do I respond or not?
No, I'll come back to you. I'm losing the line with Suhail. I'll come back to you. Suhail, make your last point before we lose the link.
I think what Nirmala has said is so pertinent. And I'm not flattering her, but she comes across as a much more mature and calm spokesman than some of the, shriveling, shrieking spokespeople that you have.
There you go.
So, Nirmala, be decent and be humane, and people respect decency and humanity.
Thank you.
Okay, so if your followers think that by wielding the sword and being abusive, you'll be popular, then you should become a villain in Hindi cinema and not a spokesman for a political party.
Thank you.
So I think what you're doing is very credible, and you should continue to do that. Don't follow your party president.
Right, all right. Suhail, thanks a lot. We're completely losing the signal with you. Enjoy that London weather while we are in the heat of Delhi, quite literally. Renuka Chaudhary, your last comments on this. I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll be discussing slugfests again in maybe some weeks or months from now.
No, Nidhi, actually I want to congratulate you for having addressed this issue in the first place. And let's hope that all of us can conduct ourselves with a little dignity. It's disappointing when I see audience being cynical. I don't think the time has come as yet for that. We collectively, irrespective of whether we are ruling or opposition, this is our country, and the only way to go is forward.
Sankarshan is saying all very nice words, but do those words apply? Do you believe that applies to the Congress as well? I mean, that you could have, and you're an honest and frank person. You could have avoided saying BJP chief ministers are despots.
No, despots, because there was a sharp reaction that despotism is actually a conduct. It's not so much as a word, it's a verb. So, nothing justifies it. Let's put it, Nidhi, no one's justified in talking any which way. But I really do think that it's extremely disappointing that Mr. Gadkari speaks like that, and there are levels and there are hierarchies which you have to look at.
All right, well, I'm completely out of time. I would love to thank all of you for joining us tonight, and we were talking about the political discourse, the tutu meme between politicians, between civil society and politicians, and we have to leave you with this sound bite tonight, our bite of the day from who else but Digvijay Singh on Anna Hazare and Arvind Kejriwal. Good night.
ये बार-बार अनशन करना ना उनकी सेहत के लिए अच्छा है, न देश के लिए अच्छा है, और करवाना ही है तो उनके जो सिविल सोसाइटी में नौजवान लोग हैं, अरविंद केजरीवाल जी हैं, प्रशांत भूषण जी हैं, उनसे करवाइए, वो क्यों बैठते हैं?